Hi everybody, I'm Susan Marshall, founder of Backbone Institute, where we work on increased competence to elevate confidence to enable intelligent, purposeful risk. That's me. On our panel today, we have right next to me is Annie Schwartz. Who doesn't know Annie, right? Annie is an author, award-winning journalist, and internationally recognized crisis communications maven. My word, not hers. Working with law enforcement, criminal justice, and public safety officials. Great. Next to Annie is Melanie Eden. Melanie is a real estate broker, financial advisor, TV host, and property management magnate. My word, not hers, with 30 plus years of experience. And finally, we have Rosario Sanchez-Ledesma, business consultant, executive coach, former principal, and leadership maestro, my word, who is principal and co-founder of LIFECAMP, a premier coaching organization. This is our panel. They are phenomenal. We're going to talk today about negotiating. And I thought it would be good to get kicked off to this session for each one of these panelists to share with us a negotiation that is particularly memorable to them. So Annie, if you would like to kick us off, please.
Absolutely. Good morning, sunshines. How are you? I see the photographers. So here's the thing. I try to sit like I have a tennis ball in between my lower back and the chair, because otherwise I look like a stack of tires, and it's not a good thing. So that's a free tip for all of you who may find yourselves on camera. Pretend you have a tennis ball between your lower back and the chair. Do it now. And practice. Right? It hurts. It hurts. This is how fast this goes off the rails. You know this, right? I'm Annie Schwartz. I have had a strange career. No, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the Dahmer case. That's for drinks later. I've had a really a strange career path, although haven't a lot of us had a really strange career path. I was a journalist. My creepy claim to fame is that I was the reporter that broke the Jeffrey Dahmer story 34 years ago. I wrote a book on the case. Netflix made a movie out of it 2 years ago. Didn't pay me anything. No one's bitter. Moving along.
Negotiation.
Negotiation. She's so cute. I ended up working as the public relations manager for the Milwaukee Police Department. I was the spokesperson for the department. And one of the things that I did was to go along with law enforcement when they had some of the higher profile incidents so that I could learn. And one of those incidents was the Azana Spa shooting. And when you're talking about a difficult negotiation, that's one of the ones I think about. There's also another one that I was actively involved in, which was a hostage situation, someone who was actually holding hostages. The Azana Spa shooting was not a hostage situation. They were just trying to get him out. And one of the things I learned in that negotiation was that he was consuming information while we were trying to negotiate with him. So he's consuming other things that are out there. And that's something that I still remember when it comes to negotiation in business. And that is, always be aware that the person you're talking to may have done extra research, right? So I never forget that. We had there are a number of hostage situations that I've dealt with, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this when it comes to negotiation is because there are a lot of parallels, even though you probably think there aren't, right? It can feel like someone else that you're talking to is holding you hostage for something, and so that is one of the reasons that they asked me to come and talk about this today. So we've had hostage takers that have said we've talked to them for hours, and finally somewhere in the negotiation, I remember this so well, he had children in the house, and during the negotiation he made reference to needing a cup of coffee, needing caffeine, right? Needing a cup of coffee. So what did we do? We went and got him coffee. But anyway, that's one of the lessons we'll talk about today, is the fact that when one of the things he had kind of intimated was he wanted a cup of coffee. He was just, he was kind of centered on that. We gave him one. And what you do in a negotiation is you give a little. And then you get a little, because if you,
So we have a hostage situation, a negotiation that was particularly memorable to you.
Oh, great. I had an interesting situation where I was negotiating a real estate deal, and the day before the closing was supposed to happen, one of the signers went to China. And so we have to figure out how to do an online notary in a country that doesn't allow online notaries. So we had to figure out how to negotiate with his wife, who was on the hostile side here, and he was in China, and I'd always dealt with the husband in the transaction. I had zero relationship with his wife. And figure out through their attorney how to get documents to China signed, because I had buyers in the driveway with a moving truck.
Wow, international. Awesome. International brokerage deal, real estate deal.
I learned a lot.
Thank you. Rosario.
Well, I really thought we were going to kind of escalate that way. Mine is perhaps one that is immediately relatable in the room, which has to do with negotiating a salary or an increase in salary. And did you want me to expound on it a little bit? Okay, so I was part of a senior leadership team inside of an organization, and as can often happen with startup organizations, is scope creep in your job. So you get hired to do this job with these responsibilities, and then because you're so good at what you do, you get more and more and more, and pretty soon you realize you have 2 jobs, if not 3, on your plate. And then you realize too that the pay is not fair or commensurate with what you're doing, and that in the original position that you signed up for, there was already an incredible pay gap. So all of that stuff happened to me, I became aware of it, and then it was time to do something with it.
So we have 3 very different scenarios here, but I think we can all relate it in a certain way. How do you get ready to walk into a notion? How do you get your head in the game? What are some of the things you do to prepare? Rosario, let's start with you, please.
Yeah, thank you. So with specific to salary negotiations, and maybe there's a common thread through all the different types of negotiations. I believe there's maybe a common, there's something, a common set of things I believe that can happen inside of negotiations. And one, there's mindset. So are you standing inside of your power and inside of empowering thoughts that are going to help you negotiate that which you seek? And then there's the very tactical things that you need to do to get ready. So I think about the power side of it, like a battery, like a phone, a cell battery, right? What are you going to do to charge your power when you go into a negotiation? That's where the tactical stuff comes in. So you'll hear oftentimes with negotiations that you have to be very good at communicating, that you have to be very good at knowing your value and stand in your worth and stand in your power. Well, then you say, well, what does that mean and what does it look like? And that's where it becomes very tactical. So things like, and I believe we have a handout that you're going to be given at some point with some of these tips on it, but the tactical stuff is doing your research, understanding what the market bears for that role that you're in and the work that you're doing. Understanding like what else is involved inside of compensation packages. Sometimes it's salary, sometimes it's vacation, sometimes it's other perks on the job. And what else? There's a number of other things, you know, sometimes there's relocation packages, other things that get negotiated into what isn't just the dollar side of a salary figure. All right, let me pause there.
Yes, thanks. Melanie.
Sure. What I like to do in any type of negotiation is I take a step back first, and I kind of look at all the parties that are involved in any type of transaction. There's you, that is the negotiator between the 2 or maybe 3 or 4 parties, and then I try to get into the head of every single individual in the transaction. What does this person want to get out of the transaction? What does this person want to get out of the transaction? And if we boil it down to real estate, one person wants to buy a house at the lowest dollar amount possible, and the other wants to sell the house at the highest dollar amount possible, and there's huge emotions on either side of the transaction, and we have to eliminate the emotion from the transaction, which is mostly impossible to do. You have to read the room for body language, tone, how interested is each party in getting to the closing table. And once you know what your other parties in the transaction want by talking to everybody, then you can come to the table and say, okay, this person wants this person wants this, and let's try to split the hairs in between.
Is there a danger, and I'll get to you in a second, Annie, is there a danger of over-preparing and or creating your own set of assumptions based on what you think the other person wants, needs?
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes speaking less and listening more is usually the key. The less you speak as the negotiator, silence is golden in every negotiation.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, thank you. Annie, how do you get your head in the game?
Getting your head in the game is important when lives are at stake, but also I want you to think of every negotiation that you are involved in, whether it's with your kids, with your spouse, or with someone where you're trying to negotiate a better salary. 5 things, 5 bullet points, okay? You can control yourself, can't control the other person. Right? Can always control you. Can't control the other person, just kind of have to, that's why letting them speak is the magic. The other one is the second thing is, so the first thing, obviously, you can control yourself, can't control the other person. Second, you have to build rapport. I mean, look, when we first started talking today, I never just launch into the thing. I mean, I should because we don't have a lot of time. But building rapport, and I know that the other ladies up here will agree with me, that's everything, especially in real estate. My goodness, that's the business, is to have some kind of a rapport. We always try to think of something that we can do. 90% of hostage negotiation, by the way, is listening. Kid you not, it is. And the other 10% is, I hear you. Active listening, it's the third thing. I'm sure you've all heard these different phrases in different books when you're looking for answers to how do I get what I want? How do I negotiate for what I want? One of the things that we do is you want to repeat back to people. Have you ever heard that? What I hear, it sounds like you're really upset about this. It sounds like this is really bothering you. It's, you repeat back, when you repeat back things and you label emotions, and you show empathy, people will negotiate with someone they feel heard by. And this is when you're in either position, right? But even if you are not, if you're the person trying to get what you want, you want the other person involved to feel heard, because people give you what you want when you make them feel heard. Rushing, always bad. It's a risk whenever you are negotiating in crisis. So slow is good. Slow is good. Okay, I only have a few minutes to talk to you. Well, all right. You know what? Let's try to figure out another time that might be better, because they're trying to get an advantage right there. I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to kill everybody in here. Do you like the analogy? I'm going to kill everybody in here. All right. Okay. Well, you know what? I can hear that you are really frustrated about this. Tell me what's going on. I mean, all of that is drawing people out, and it's slow. And the number 5 bullet point for you is everybody needs to get a win. Okay? Everybody needs to get a win. Everybody needs to feel like they got something. And so that is those are kind of the 5 pillars when it comes to negotiation. Yes, it's hostage negotiation. None of you will probably ever have to negotiate for someone's life. But these principles also will help you in business. So that's why I'm giving you all these lovely disjointed stories today.
Thank you for the tips, Annie. They're wonderful. I have a question. Just throw it out, whoever wants to pick this up. How do you not lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish when you're reading the room and you're listening to people and you want them to have a win? How do you not lose sight of what you want and how you want this to play out? Mm-hmm.
Tell me to take that. Yeah. So it seems to me that the intentionality of a negotiation is front and center. When you are presenting yourself and there's something that you want, you go in with the intention of being focused, laser focused, to have a conversation and a communication to get to that space of common ground where the minds come together to agree on something. And as I mentioned, in my example with the salary negotiation, it almost kind of felt like, felt very high stakes, like a hostage situation.
Sure.
I got put through the paces of any question that you can think of came at me, and I was ready for that. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that one of the best tips that I could offer is just be prepared, come in with that intention of knowing that you've done your work, you deserve to be heard and seen, as Annie was saying, and stay laser focused.
Well, I'm going to jump in here, though, because we all know in a conversation, particularly when you want something badly, we can be derailed emotionally, right, by someone who has a very different approach, maybe, hardballs back to us that we were not expecting. How do you manage yourself?
Yeah.
Be nice. What I've learned over way too many years of being in business is the nicer you are to everybody in the transaction, if someone's hostile, it throws them off the rails. If someone is trying to be demeaning, they don't know how to react to someone who's just nice all the time. No matter what they throw at you, the comeback is, I can appreciate that, but let's stay on task and be calm adults and not, face it, ladies, we have the ability to be defensive when we feel attacked, and then our voices get high and we get like, and then we want to attack. Step back and realize that it's not personal, and the nicer you are, they'll calm down, and suddenly you'll be able to have a real conversation.
Yeah, I think that's hard to do also when you're on the receiving end of the pushback. I believe 100% and agree with that approach. It's just really tough to do when you're staring the person, you're right there. And, negotiations can be reframed, right? So oftentimes they feel hard to do, or there's that fear-based thinking or the fear factor that comes in when you want to ask for a salary increase. So there's all of that. If you can reframe the conversation to a space of, how can this be a collaborative conversation? How can this be a growth conversation? And give yourself a ton of credit for standing in that courageous space of coming forward, prepared, and ready to have the conversation, and you're already there, and you're like, you know what? Here it is. And you stay calm. This little voice in the air right now that keeps coming into the room feels a little frustrating, right? And then at the same time, it's completely perfect, because this is what happens inside of negotiations. You come prepared and ready to do your thing, and someone derails it somehow, unintentionally, but it happens. You keep your calm, you take a breath, and you say, let's just get down to business of why we're here.
Here's a quick one for you. Two things. One is, never in the history of calm and calming down has anybody ever calmed down by being told to calm down. See, you said it with me.
Right.
I'm just saying those two words. They're right up there in my book with no comment, right? I don't want to hear them. But the other thing I would tell you, how many of you are familiar with the term strategic silence?
What this is.
Because one of the things that I learned, so I worked in corporate America and I worked in the private sector, and I'm telling you that so many things that I have learned in the public sector, especially in public safety, apply to the corporate world and to the goals that you all are here trying to figure out. When you're questioning a prisoner and you've arrested somebody, the best interrogators know how to use strategic silence. Because often it's awkward, right? It feels like a bad date. You're like, oh God, I have to say something, right? Oh, I see all the heads nodding. We know from a bad date. But that it feels like you should say something. And it really is he who speaks first loses. And when I do executive training and I train executives how to speak on camera and how to do interviews with media and how to talk to people, that's one of the things I tell them. If the interview is just getting long in the tooth, it's time to go, shut up and see what happens.
So we're not going to sit in silence because we don't have the kind of time to sit
Can
a
I
long
jump
time.
in one more thing?
But sorry, go ahead.
Have any of you ever gotten that end of the day email, end of the day phone call? You're packed up, you're ready to leave, and someone calls you, and you look at it, and you go, should I take that call or not take that call?
It's always no.
Yes.
Exactly. Or do I respond to that end of the day email? Do not do it. Wait till the next day, because sometimes letting them sit on their question, by the time you get back to them the next day, they will have their answer.
You also create a boundary, right?
That's right. Right? You know, or if someone calls you at 7 o'clock at night, oh, I just got this one more question. It's 7 frickin' o'clock at night. You don't have this question that can't wait till 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
That's a powerful strategy in terms of negotiating, right? Who's in charge? And the question that's occurring to me as I'm listening to each of you tell your stories, how much of negotiation is identity? How much of that do we bring? You know, Rosario, you talked about standing in your power. And there are people negotiating on the opposite side are standing in their power. Now we got a power struggle. How is that different from a productive negotiation?
Yeah, it's a power imbalance oftentimes with salary negotiations, because you're the employee and you're speaking to the boss, the employer. And I believe it's important to find, again, that space of the tactical, right? Do your homework, understand the market research, understand the numbers, understand the value that you bring, the skills that you bring, your disposition. Know that nobody is going to do your work the way you do, with your head, with your heart, with who you are, uniquely you, right? You bring your fingerprint to that job. That's how you power yourself up to stand before someone when there is a power imbalance. You're there to offer what you can offer solidly, and to also understand that they need something from you. That's a big point of power. And that was a point of power for me in that specific role. I was uniquely qualified to do that job, and I was doing 3 jobs with an incredible pay gap.
How do you ask for what you believe you deserve? Right? That's a loaded word. How do you ask from a point for a position of strength and true belief that the value you bring is essential to the successful outcome of this negotiation for both parties?
I think it's taking it off of you and saying, how can I get this person to see my value? Because I can sit there all day and talk about how great I am, right? But I need you. I need the person that I'm negotiating with to see the value, to recognize that I can perhaps make them look better, make the company look better. But it's less about me, which as an only child is very difficult because it's all about me, but is trying to figure out how can I make that, you're trying to get what you want by taking the focus off of you. At the end of a negotiation, you always want to feel like, okay, great, I did this for you. I got you out safely, or I helped you end this quietly. You want that person that you're negotiating with to feel like, okay, I got this. Because if you make them feel small, right? If you make them feel less than, that's not good. And that's a bad way to end a negotiation, even if you do get what you want, because unless that person's leaving, that's forever.
I can see wheels turning, you guys.
I have another approach that one could consider also in salary negotiations, and what I did was I put together a task analysis to illustrate to my employer this is all of the, these are all the buckets of work and strategic initiatives that I'm involved in. And then I put an impact piece together. Here's an impact statement of what the impact of that work has been. And that positioned me well for them to, in this case, it was an older male, right? And there was an incredible power dynamic. It was also religious, it was a religious institution. So a lot of stuff was going on in my head. So in this case, the focus was on me. What do I bring to this role? How do I illustrate that? And then how do I help them see the value and connect the dots between that and what I was asking for?
About 20 years ago, I read a book. It was called The Birth Order Book. I don't have the same problems that Annie has as an only child because I'm the youngest of 6.
Oh,
so
geez.
as the baby of the family, you know, I got everything I wanted, trust me.
No wonder you took that seat so fast.
That's what my siblings say. I disagree on that. But the Birth Order Book, if you haven't read this book, it's an excellent book for sales, for negotiations, because the author writes in there about how different people, in whether they're firstborns, only children, middle child, youngest, how they like to receive information. So understanding where they are in the birth order within their family structure will help you negotiate with them, because you'll understand how they like to receive information. And if you present and package the information to them, it kind of seems weird when you're having a meeting with somebody and say, you know, how many siblings do you have? Where do you fall in the food chain?
Oh, that's fascinating. I love that.
And they start to open up about, yeah, you know, I'm a middle child, and my oldest sister, she's just like, and then I have a younger brother, and he gets So they're telling you how they like to receive information. So take that and put it in your memory vault and spit it back to them. But read that book. It's awesome.
The Birth Order?
The Birth Order book. There's probably like 6 he's improved, because he was the youngest of 7, the author of this book. And as the youngest of 6, nailed everybody in my family. And I mean, my dad was an oldest child, and my mom was a middle child, and then I've got all the issues in between with my siblings. So it's a really good book. Highly recommend it.
And when people tell me to think of others, think of the organization, it's like, no. Really, I don't.
And you know what? In that book, they'll talk about Annie.
They, right, probably. Chapters.
Well, now I'm going to read it. I'm feeling like there's lots of threads that I can get distracted by. How do you manage your emotion as a negotiation is moving along?
I think the brain science comes into play a little bit here. This is big right now in my world as a coach, and the world of LIFECAMP. What we teach is mental fitness. And what we know and what the science tells us is that when somebody is angry or upset, they can trigger those neurons in your own brain, right? So that you then get triggered by it. This is easy. Like, think about at home with a spouse or a partner or your kid. They just do something and it triggers something in you. Well, negotiations already, oftentimes when the stakes are high, you're entering into that space and emotions can be high. So one potential step would be just to, again, take a breath, be calm, and agree with you 100%. Don't tell me to calm down but this is an approach you have to come to that place and dig deep within you to find that space of calm, so that you can mirror back using your tone, your presence, your calmness to have an adult conversation, a calm conversation with this person about a very high stakes thing.
You know, there's before I speak, I'm always just a little bit nervous, and I can start out like really fast, like, I really deserve this, I hope you can do this for me, and and you go off the rails. There's a little technique that's called 2 in, 1 long, 1 out, and it's breath. And breath work is something that I used to, okay, we'll put that there with the sound bath and whatever else. But you take 2 breaths in through your nose, just, and then a really long 1 out. And you can do that a few times, and you'd be surprised at how that helps you regulate yourself. truly. I'm always the one that would poo-poo that, but I think that that's a very valuable thing. And then earlier we talked about emotional labeling, telling people you sound like you are, or, again, this is different perhaps in business when you're negotiating for salary, but mirroring the person a little bit is sometimes a very helpful tactic. Like they're talking about something's awful, and you're like, oh yeah. I mean, I think that every message that you give during a negotiation has to be intentional. It may feel like it's by the seat of your pants, but it's very intentional. Stop in the middle of that negotiation and do without looking like you're gonna fall on the ground or something, but it really is, it's a small thing, but it's a big thing.
Absolutely.
When it comes to controlling yourself.
All right, I want to flip this coin. We've talked about mirroring other people and sort of responding back. What about the stoic?
So how to deal with someone who's not giving anything. As you were talking about personality styles and meeting people where they're at, I think that's huge, because the communication that you use can also be altered by that. I've been negotiating since I was a child. I come from a large Mexican family with 7 brothers. Let me tell you, they call me the negotiator. Okay,
You're the master.
And I have a sister. I have a sister as well. So you learn how to deal with different people and communicate with them, meet them where they're at. In this case, the boss that I had was a very dominant personality, and that person wanted be good, be brief, and be gone. So I had to be ready, and I had to be meeting that energy just like that. And there's no ego in this, by the way. You kind of put that stuff aside. You want to come and have a conversation, and you're trying to find some common ground with respect, with courtesy. And of course, you're trying to get to your end game, so you're trying to find language that's positive and fruitful to get you to that mark.
Negotiating with someone who's a sphinx and very stoic, it's really tough to do. Very information-based. If you talk about anything that's emotional, forget about it, you've lost them. And again, go back to the rule that silence is golden. Sometimes what you're saying to them, they like words at a minimum. So use few words, let them process, let them lead the conversation. Hard to do when you're trying to get to where you need to get to, but they're information processors, so you're just going to have to sit back and wait.
Yeah, they think versus feeling, so you match that.
We talk a lot in business generally about emotional intelligence. We're talking about that now.
Yes.
How do you manage yourself as you're having a conversation that's really, really important to you? How do you know, what do you watch for that tells you things are going well, or man, they're off the tracks?
Body language. High 90s, 92, 93% of where the conversation is going to does not come out of someone's mouth. You have to watch their body language. You have to watch their eyes. You have to pay attention to tone. Hard to do in a text, hard to do in an email. That's why face-to-face negotiations tend to be more productive than an email negotiation, because you don't get any of that. Is someone leaning into the conversation? Are they sitting back with their arms crossed? You have to pay attention to that body language. And then you have to pay attention to AI. Is someone going to do a GPT to respond to your text? Are you really getting the real person? So you have to pay attention to body language.
In addition to the book that you talked about, The Birth Order, which I'm absolutely going to read, but it's too much introspection for me for today. But one of the things that I love learning about is body language, because you can use it everywhere in your life. There is a woman named Janine Driver. Have you ever heard of her? Any of you ever heard of her? Janine Driver. And she has a podcast, free. I'm a huge fan of free. She has a podcast, and she talks about things like when I first went into policing, I was the only woman on the command staff. And one of the things that was weird is that the men would sit like this in a meeting. It's called steepling. And they're pretty much saying they're in charge. And they're like an immovable object. If you ever, I hope there's nobody from Channel 12 in here, if their new general manager does those opinion things, like where he gets on and says, here's my opinion, the editorial, and every time he gets on, he does this when he's talking. And I'm so distracted by it because I've learned about the body language. I just study it, because that's such an excellent point, is that body language is everything. Because your words can lie, your body really can't. You learn that when you watch polygraphs. You can control everything, but that body is always gonna pick out the liar.
Well, and you mentioned, Danny, a little bit earlier, the power of silence. When does a pause, scratch that, does a pause signal uncertainty? And if so, why would someone reach that conclusion?
I don't think it signals uncertainty. I think a pause signals uncertainty if you pause and you lose eye contact, right? You start looking down. If you're not keeping eye contact, and not in a creepy way, not in like that way, because that's a whole other deal. But you maintain eye contact. Sometimes you can even, do the nod. I mean, we do that way too much. You look like a bobblehead, but still, you can. You look considered. You look like you are thinking about it, as opposed to, I don't know what the hell's happening right now.
Well, but the nod thing I think is important, and I'd like each of you to weigh in, because as women, we do this a lot. And I'm thinking when I do this, I'm with you.
Right.
If I'm negotiating with someone who's looking for any crack in my armor, this means yes. This means I agree. What do we do with that?
I think there's that self-awareness of understanding, are you a nodder? I'm a nodder, and I use my body a lot to communicate. I've been very proud of my use of hands, my limited use of hands, because usually I'm like all up here, and I'm like, I'm going to keep my hands down today. So if you're, just to be aware, if you're aware that you're a nodder, there's a balance. You can either over-rotate and be like, yes, 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 or not enough. I believe it's kind of like that. You got to know when to hold them, when to fold them, and when to nod, when not to nod. Yeah.
How many of you have ever been videotaped? You've seen yourself on videotape or television or something like that. Isn't that just the worst freaking day of your life?
Gross, yeah.
Oh my God. It's just like, I wonder how fast the plastic surgeon can take me. But I would advise, it costs nothing. The little tripods are nothing, and if you don't have that kind of money, just use your phone. Record yourself saying in a conversation with anybody, anytime. When maybe it's a phone thing, or maybe, if you can record yourself. I learned so much about the crazy, weird stuff I do with my face when I'm talking. Like I do like these squinty eyes when I think I'm being really, and I thought, I look like I freaking can't see. I look like Mr. Magoo. It's like the worst. I think it's a good awareness exercise to see yourself as others are seeing you.
Followed by a recommendation for therapy, yes?
Oh, God, let me tell you. First of all, no one likes the way they look, ever, ever, ever. I know this. As I say, when I teach executives, they're always just like, oh, God, no, the last exercise they ever want to do is the on-camera one. I'm good. Don't need that. It's like, well, yeah, kind of do. But I would advise that. See what you look like to yourself. You're nodding your head. You did that exercise, and it was like you wanted to die, right?
I wanted to die, yeah. But I learned good things. I'm a nodder. I fully recognize that.
There it is.
Thoughts?
When someone is negotiating with me, because there's when we do the negotiation as the mediator, and then There are people that every day in our life, our kids are negotiating with us, our spouse is negotiating with us. So when we know that we're trying to be worked, we need to, we either need to, if we're going to be a nodder, you have to realize that that is your flaw. I tend to just be I tend to be stoic, which is odd for me. So I don't nod along to the conversation. When I actually am agreeing with them, I will verbally agree. Otherwise, I will just, sit there and say, okay, and don't give them any verbal cues to work with because I'm processing all the information. So you have to understand where you are in the food chain. Are you being negotiated, or are you doing the negotiations?
That's important.
I like that one.
That's important, yeah. We could talk about this for probably, 3 months. I would like to invite each of you to share kind of a closing thought or one tip that each of us should take from this room to be better negotiators.
All right, so one, because two hit me right away when you said one, but we haven't talked about the element of timing, again, back to you got to know when to hold them, when to fold them. Do you know what I'm referring to, that old Kenny Rogers song? Yeah.
Do you want me to sing it?
You can sing it?
It's okay.
So there's oftentimes with salary negotiations, people will say to you, we don't have the budget, we haven't planned for this. So you want to come back and understand, so when would be a good, have the language and the follow-up questions. When is a good time to follow up with you on this? When do you anticipate having that budget planning process? Can you work this increase into that planning process? And the other one I want to just leave you with is, I think we mentioned this notion of when to stop, when to shut up, like when to stop. Because I've watched people talk themselves out of really good deals. The person already says, yes, you deserve this salary this increase. And the person keeps talking. Like, if yes would have been said to me right then and there, I would have been shut up. Thank you very much. Here, sign the paper. Let's go. So that's it. Timing and when to shut it.
When I first went into sales, I was 22 years old, so that was like 1 year ago. I'm 54 now, and in my first sales training class that I went to, they talked about the child and the adult negotiations. The child throws a temper tantrum, they stomp, they try to get their way, they escalate, and the adult in the room slows down, talks slower, and then the other person eventually matches their tone. So, we're talking many years later, decades later. I still remember my first training class about the child-adult communication conversation, whether it's in life or business or home negotiations. Remember where you are and see where the other person is coming from and how they're operating. And the louder they get, the quieter you get. And eventually, you'll become here, and then you can talk.
It's a good husband tip, too.
Annie, you have like 20 seconds. Go.
Oh, don't you love that? She's just baiting me. Do you know what time it is?
11. Oh.
Is that what I asked you?
Yeah, so go.
Always listen. Listen to the question. Listening is more important. The question I just asked you was, do you know what time it is? The answer to that question is either yes or no, right? Now, we're always trying to be helpful. You talked about talking too much, talking yourself out of a raise, right? But always listen to the question, but listen. Because the answer to the question, and you learn this when you testify in court, the answer to the question, right? Oh, I got a lawyer back there, I know I do. I can always tell. The answer to the question, do you know what time it is either yes or no. It's not the time, because you're giving more than is asked. And that takes us back to, I think, the common theme that we all agreed on, which was listening more than we talk.
Thank you. What a delightful panel. Thank you to each of you.
Thank you to you guys.
I do have one closing reminder for everyone in this room. Your value is not for sale. You know what you're worth. Go get it.
Oh, I like that.